Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is today, and welcome back. I hope that your day is unfolding so beautifully well in the tubes on our end to make sure we don't run into any of those problems that we had yesterday. But it looks like we're coming in loud and clear, I think, in all the places that we should be. And that's tremendous news because it is a beautiful Wednesday, my friends, and welcome back. I hope that your week is off to an incredible start and it's all downhill from here. We got some business to attend to today. So quick preview on what we got coming up before we zoom in on further detail. You can see we've got here Judge Amir Ali. We're going to be back in his courtroom today with several filings, two of them actually, one good. And one, we'll see what he decides to do, because this was the judge who said that Trump had to pay that $2 billion, remember, by midnight to the foreign aid, USAID, or else there's going to be real repercussions for them. The Supreme Court came in, stepped in, stopped all of that. But Trump is now out today saying, look, a lot of stuff has happened now. We've canceled all of the contracts that need to be canceled. And so you no longer have jurisdiction over anything that is happening here. So Trump and the DOJ, they filed a motion to dismiss the amended complaint that was filed in Judge Ali's courtroom. And we're excited to go through that one to see where this goes, because this has been up to the Supreme Court, come all the way back down, and we've been fighting over this for quite some time. So now we got a big, fat, whopping motion to dismiss, and those are always enjoyable. So we're excited about that. Then, after we're done talking about that, we're going to go back to this guy's courtroom because he issued a very nice ruling that was adverse to the DNC. The DNC lost this lawsuit, a nice victory for President Trump that we'll get into today, including the order that was written by Judge Amir Ali. And someone's saying no Rumble stream again? The heck? All right, anyways, we got a memo here, a memo opinion that we're going to be going through that came out from Judge Amir Ali. And then we'll talk finally about Instagram Karine, because Karine has now turned around and left the party, saying that she's now an independent. And we'll see what that means. But her team flipped out about this. So Alex Thompson, who wrote the book with Jake Tapper, is explaining that he sent emails to Karine and her team about this some time ago, and that they denied that they were working on this book. Turns out the book they're working on, and here it is. And so we'll go through what some of this reaction is, because he's calling them out and their team appears to be just melting down. So a bunch of good stuff to get to today, and we're curious as to why the Rumble's not working. And I was like 90% sure that was going to work today. So not real sure what's going on over there. We'll, of course, continue to diagnose and go through the show. Hopefully it kicks over here any moment. But my friends, we got a great stream planned ahead. Very glad that you're here and with us. Before we get into any of it, let's say what's up to some friends on the show, which are going to be our friends at American Finance, baby, who are here with us today, sponsoring the show. We're very happy to hear from them because many people are feeling it out there. We've got costs, we've got markets shifting around, stocks, mortgages, home repairs, and all the things. And if you're a homeowner, you've probably thought, should I call America Financing to refinance and pay off this credit card debt? It's a great question. Maybe you have thought about that. And if so, then you second guess yourself because of that low mortgage rate that you currently have. But here is the situation and the deal. That low rate might not actually be a low rate if you're drowning in credit card debt. If you got 25% credit card debt or more, then you're paying more for the credit card than you would for the mortgage. So that is math no one wants to face, but it is costing you thousands, but could be. Now, the fact is, if you're only making minimum payments, that debt could follow you for years. That's why people are calling American Financing, because they're saving customers an average of $800 a month by using their equity to break free from credit card debt. So why not just see what's possible No upfront fees, no pressure. It costs you nothing to find out what you could save every month, and you can start today. Just give them a call, and you can even delay 2 mortgage payments if you need to. So their phone number, 866-887-1201, 888-887-1201, AmericanFinancing.net/Robert if you want to check that out. Links are in the description below. And thanks for supporting the sponsors of today's show. All right, so for some reason, Rumble's still not working. Are we live on X at least? Let's see if that's working. Are we over there? Hopefully. Yeah, we're live over on X. So why isn't Rumble working? All right, so don't know. All right, so my friends, we'll figure that out later. We're going to just woo-saw our way through it and get back into the show. All right, so here we are jumping in with this filing in Judge Amir Ali's courtroom. Here it is from the president. Yeah, it's not working. All right, here we go. President Trump and the DOJ not playing around anymore with this USAID money business. Remember, we were in this case some time ago. The AIDS Vaccine Advocacy Coalition, United States versus suing the United States Department of State. This was also the Global Health Council case consolidated into Judge Amir Ali's courtroom. This is this judge, Judge Amir Ali, the first Muslim and Arab American in the DC District Court. And this guy, remember, was born in Ontario, Canada, and became a citizen just in 2019 before he started to issue injunctions that forced the president to pay out $2 billion to people that the president canceled. So he is back. And remember, the Supreme Court got this case. This judge said to everybody, get your payments in by midnight or else. And Trump appealed this to the Supreme Court, went over there. The Supreme Court turned around and said, actually, Judge, you got to slow your roll on this. All right. You owe some due deference to the executive branch and take it easy, essentially. So then the Supreme Court came back down and they said, hey, Judge Ali, the district court should clarify what obligations the government must fulfill to ensure compliance with the TRO with due regard for the feasibility of any compliance timelines. The order is therefore vacated that Chief Justice Roberts entered before, and this went back down to the district court, and it's been percolating down there for some time. Then we just got today the motion to dismiss filed by the DOJ, and here's what they write. All right, Judge Amir, we're back, and guess what? They explained to us that after we get through this table of contents and more, the following. They write here, as we keep scrolling and scrolling away, says here, this court rejected plaintiff's request for a preliminary injunction before. Remember, you, Judge Amir Ali, you rejected this request for a preliminary injunction, and you directed Trump, that would have directed Trump to reinstate all terminated awards. Okay. Saying they came and asked for something and you said no. You said that they had not enunciated a workable standard to say that the terminations were insufficient. Remember, we have this battle between terminations and pauses. They said unpause the pauses. Trump said, okay, we'll just terminate them. And they did. They went through Marco Rubio and the rest of the team. They were up late at night. They were just canceling everything. A separate PI provision predicated on the Impoundment Control Act and the court's construction of a constitutional separation of powers required defendants to make available for obligation the foreign assistance funds appropriated in the most recent appropriations law. Now they're trying to change things. They're trying now to shove back what you said they couldn't have, including all of the terminated awards. But now that they're amending their complaint to change their arguments, remember it was about the pause, and they said, okay, well, it's not paused then, it's canceled. And the contracts say, we can cancel it. So you can't say we can't do it because it's written into your contract literally. So they went through one by one, canceled them. So then they said, okay, now you have to undo the terminated awards as well. They say totally ridiculous. They can't just change their arguments in the middle of the case. Now, to begin with, they have not met their burden to show that this court even has jurisdiction over their claims. We never waived sovereign immunity here. They challenged termination of foreign assistance funds awarded to them through contracts and grants, and they want reinstatement of those agreements, right? They're canceled. They want you to bring them back. Now, plaintiffs here, although styled as purported APA claims, which are not, their claims are under governing precedent contract claims. So they cannot sue in this court. They have to take it to the Court of Federal Claims under the Tucker Act. And they now seek to get a right to payment. They want money. And so if it's money, that is a contract remedy. And you have to go file it in the contract courts that Congress set up. Stop violating the law. Moreover, the two plaintiffs that are associations that are trying to seek relief on behalf of their members who are not even a party to the lawsuit are acting beyond their members, and they have to have their members here if they want to be involved. And beyond the direct pocketbook injuries each plaintiff alleges from the termination of particular awards, no plaintiff has Article 3 standing to seek this type of claim. You don't get to come into the court just because you're mad. You have to have a claim. It's got to be a case in controversy here that the court has jurisdiction over, and Congress sets the jurisdictions of the courts. So if they say that claim goes over here, then that's where it goes. Nor does any plaintiff have Article 3 standing to seek relief on behalf of non-parties, and that's what they're trying to do here. But in any event, Trump says, this motion to dismiss should be granted because they don't have jurisdiction over this. Their claims are legally insufficient on the merits. Now, as to the claim seeking to require obligation of already appropriated funds, right? They're splitting the buckets up into different categories. We're entitled to this money because of that and that money because of that. They say, well, this was already appropriated. They identify, though, no specific provision of the appropriations that says that they have a right to receive the funds. They're like, okay, like those particular funds. It's like, yeah, money has been appropriated by Congress. No one's arguing that. They appropriate money all the time. Too much. In fact, we're going through that right now. They're appropriating out their butts constantly. You're like, stop it. But that doesn't mean they appropriated it to you. It went to other people, to other causes that are a lot more in line with the administration's interest. That's why elections have consequences and you're not in charge anymore. So your right to receive those particular funds is now gone. And the contract says we can do that. Instead, they assert generally that the failure to obligate all of the funds would violate the Impoundment Control Act. To them, although the Impoundment Control Act provides a framework for guiding inter-branch engagement regarding the obligation of the funds, it confers no judicially enforceable rights on non-governmental parties such as the plaintiffs. Moreover, the relief that they seek would cut off the inter-branch engagement that is contemplated by the statute, meaning we have to give them even more money than what they want in the beginning. Now, in this motion to dismiss filed by Trump, they say, as to the claim seeking to require reinstatement of the terminated awards, plaintiffs lack a cause of action under the APA to even obtain that relief. And even if they did have a cause of action, their claims are dismissed under 12b-6 for failure to state a claim, baby. They lack facially plausible allegations that the award terminations were unlawful or capricious under the APA. They predicated, says Trump, we decided to terminate these regulations based on regulations that were all incorporated into the awards themselves, saying the agencies can terminate these agreements when we determine it's in the national interest to do it. No. The civil servants know what's better for our national interest than our duly elected representatives. The civil servants who've been public servants for 15 years, Rob. They know better than we do about what's best for the whole operation. And so as long as they sue and have unions, then everything's good and they can exist forever. Plaintiffs have not challenged those regulations and all but ignore them. But the plain terms of those regulations are flexible and they support explicitly authority for the terminations. Now, in denying the efforts here, the court recognized that they failed to identify a standard. Now, they've not only failed to rectify that error in their original filings, they ignore all of the other foreign affairs issues that are here. And we, as the executive branch, have heightened powers when it comes to foreign policy. Now, plaintiffs cannot compensate for that deficiency. All they're trying to do is exaggerate the errors in the termination process and say, well, you can't cancel these things. And since you did, that's a problem for us. And so we don't consider anything else other than what you did to us. Well, the obvious alternative explanation for any such errors is that they resulted from the decisional process. In other words, it wasn't an error. And if there were any errors that they want to magnify, they're inconsequential because we have the right to cancel. So their additional claims also lack plausibility, especially in light of the flexible termination standards that are incorporated by reference into the contracts themselves. There is no property interest. They don't get to have government ability every day for the rest of their lives indefinitely. No. And neither a non-statutory claim nor a mandamus claim is available to make up for the defects that are here. In any event, the remedies that plaintiffs seek are overbroad. They're not supported by the facts, as we'll get into. So dismiss this case, Judge Amir. More background. The foreign aid funds, we know, a lot of it was going out to transgender helicopter parties in the sub-Sahara where they were studying comic book writing techniques. Similarly, Congress has generally sought to ensure that Trump and his subordinates have the power to execute their foreign policy. And they have a lot of power to do that. Lots of law here. Congress sent some money over. Congress appropriated $4 billion for global health programs, including child survival and all sorts of other things, right? Our responsibility to care for the entire planet. And we're also horrible people too, because we're Americans. So it's like tough position to be in, but we got it. So also the Impoundment Control Act says Congress says you have to spend our money. If you're an executive, you have to spend this money. And the Impoundment Control Act might be unconstitutional, especially if it conflicts with the Take Care Clause. If Congress is acting unconstitutionally, the executive has a constitutional obligation to check their power, which is unconstitutional, by not spending illegal money. Now, in addition, the statute provides that the president should transmit a special message, and there were a bunch of state awards, and this is all the background on where we're at. But the factual background begins now. Remember, we've got a pause. Trump came in, issued an executive order, said, we're going to have a pause. Your organizations are antithetical to American values, and we don't want to fund you anymore. You're destabilizing the planet. So they provided for a timely review. They gave a 90-day review period and started to go through them. Marco Rubio then directed a pause on the foreign assistance programs that was funded by USAID. Initially approved waivers and all sorts of stuff. And then what happened is they sued. Plaintiffs, who are organizations that receive and have members who receive federal funds, they sued to challenge the decision to pause the funds. How dare you? Who the heck do you think you are? The court then granted their motions. Remember all this? Enforced the agency to stop the agency from effectuating the pause. Then the judge issued another TRO and said, actually, you can, and this was so epic when we read through this before, said actually, the TRO, the judge modified it because he realized he can't do that, does not restrain defendants from taking action with respect to the agreements based on the law that already exists. So then Rubio and the State Department team, they went back, they ordered like 15 pizzas or whatever, and just went wild all weekend, just reviewing contracts. Oh, canceled. Oh, sub-Sahara helicopter parties canceled. Pronoun coming out analysis event canceled, right? One after the other. And the court expressly disclaimed any intention as to whether you could cancel them on your own terms. And they said, perfect. So then the parties engaged in various disputes about this, about compliance. Eventually, this went all the way up to the Supreme Court. We read through that. This is the order that came back down. Basically, the court said, why don't you just figure out more of this? And we're not going to give you a bunch of guidance on it. Just go back down and figure it out and make sure that you're giving due regard to compliance timelines to Trump. Remember, the Supreme Court kind of said nothing. Now, that required, regarding the court order, that they said you have to pay that money to them by midnight. Now, though styled as an order to enforce the TROs, the new order compelled the government to pay all invoices. See that? All invoices and a letter of credit drawdown for all contract work, even the stuff that was canceled that the judge said they could cancel. Judge wrote it in the order. Actually, if you use their terms to cancel it, then you can. They went into their terms like, oh, paragraph I. Perfect. Cancel for any reason. National security. We're the government. We put that in everything. Great. So then they canceled it and then they sued. Now, the circuit court dismissed the government's appeal from that order for lack of jurisdiction after the grant of a stay, which allowed the Supreme Court to consider this. They denied our application and vacated the administrative stay. The 5 justices in the majority did not comment on the government's argument for a stay. And so it was really a nothing order. This court partially granted the motion for a preliminary injunction, then rejected the request to stop the agency's terminations that postdate the TRO, explaining that the plaintiffs had not shown that those other terminations from the same agency action that they challenged in this case, right? So the judge said, okay, some of those can be canceled. And so the court declined to order the agencies to revoke those terminations before. And a lot has been happening over these past months, right? Updates, status reports, and so on. Now, nonetheless, the court concluded that the plaintiffs were going to win regardless by not extending appropriated funds, saying they're acting in violation of the separation of powers. Trump is impinging on Congress by not paying out the money to these people. And the expression of those powers through statutes that constrain the executive's authority are being impounded now. They say, listen, now, although the court recognized that the Constitution confers an important role in foreign affairs, the court says, well, Congress has a role too, and they have to control the spending. So even though the president can control foreign affairs, Congress controls spending. And so therefore, since they can hang their hat on the congressional claim, that will win. And the court said they win. The court before that, though, turned to the equitable factors and said that they would suffer irreparable harm, right? All of these NGOs, USAID, judges' families, daughters and husbands and wives, all are going to have serious equity harms. The court concluded that the balance of the equities was in their favor because they need their money or else everyone dies. And remember, everyone dies of AIDS instantly. Although the court recognized that the executive branch's countervailing legitimate interest had to consider the executive branch, the court explained, well, you can still do your review. And if you think there's a problem there, you can still do your review, but you got to pay everybody in the meantime. Now, in the interim, the court rejected the further demand as they wanted the government to be forced to continue with their contracts with these providers. The court said, no, I can't do that exactly. The court, in other words, the work can continue, not just the payments, but the work. The court explained that the violation it had found stemmed from a decision to impound the funds, but nothing requires a specific contract, right? So you can get paid, but you don't have to work. In fact, they say to the contrary, ridiculous. The Constitution and the Congress laws have traditionally afforded the executive discretion on how to spend within the constraints set by Congress. Exactly. Yeah. Trump's going to spend the money. The executive we're watching them. They're spending like mad or about to. And that's within their power. The appropriation does not go to the AIDS vaccine coalition in Africa that nobody knows anything about. The court ordered defendants to make available for obligation the full amount of funds that was appropriated, and that's what they did. Now, consistent with the TRO, they say, USAID continued to exercise agency discretion, and we terminated foreign assistant contracts and grants. In other words, we read, this was so fun, a rigorous multi-level review process that began with spreadsheets. They went through contracts row by row, every single instrument line by line in a spreadsheet, explaining who the recipient was, the amount of the award, the subject matter, and a description. They went through. They said, oh yeah, that's canceled. Foreign policy reasons. Just general subject matter, canceled. Judgment, foreign policy perspectives, canceled. At the final stage, Rubio was even personally involved, and he confirmed that these decisions were taken with full visibility to the entire foreign policy apparatus of the United States. And so then Rubio on March 28th notified Congress of the intent of the State Department and USAID to reorganize. They also said, we're going to restructure other state bureaus as well, so get ready for it. Then Van Hollen had a meltdown. I wouldn't have voted for you. The president on June 3rd transmitted to Congress a special message and said, oh, we're going to also rescind a bunch of these things, right? So I know a lot of people are unhappy with this big, beautiful bill and all this stuff, but like they're cutting, man. They're cutting. Doesn't mean they're not going to spend more later down the line, but this is a shift. At least the money's going elsewhere at the moment. So amended complaints say, so what happened is they didn't like this change. They said, oh, crap, they just canceled everything. So our whole lawsuit was about unpausing it. The judge said they could cancel it. So they said, oh, all right, well, If you don't want it paused, how are you going to like if we cancel it? And they just canceled everything. It's epic. We enjoyed that a lot. So then they changed their lawsuit. They said, oh, we're going to amend the complaint. And the judge said that you could terminate, but now we're going to say you need to undo the termination. So they're kind of dug in here. Now, the amended complaint. So then they said, on April 22nd and on May 2nd, they amended and changed their complaint to address some of the events that have come out afterwards. They said, well, these terminations now that post-date the TROs were illegal. These were firings en masse, and they couldn't have done that. And the judge wrote it in his order. You could. They further alleged that the decisional process was insufficient. Okay, so this is the second part. Like, this is where lawyers really make their money. I don't know how much these lawyers got paid for this, but probably wasn't enough. They said, no. Are you going to sue and challenge the contract? No. We're going to challenge the decisional process, and we're going to make the argument that that is not an impingement on the executive branch because they said that they were working too fast, because it's impossible for Rubio to look through a spreadsheet and give them a meaningful individualized review. And they were working too fast. Wait, you can't cancel everything that fast. Yes, you can. You just look through the spreadsheet. It's easy. You ever used Excel before, dummies? You just skim it all the way down. Go to the right. At the top column, you just write canceled. Okay, canceled. And then there's a little box up there. Just click that bottom corner. Got to be a little sneaky with the click sometimes. It can be a little bit squirrely. Sometimes it doesn't want to do what you want to do. But you find that corner, baby, on the spreadsheet. It's like 75 million thousand rows. You just scroll, highlight, click it, hold, scroll all the way down through all of the column, the entire column, all the rows, all the way down to the last one, 75 million and one, whatever the number is. And what that's going to do is copy and paste, cancel to the whole thing. Got it. You individually reviewed everyone, and they're canceled now. That's plenty of due process as far as I'm concerned. Now, I'm sure they did a lot more than that, right? But that's basically what they're saying happened. They're saying their argument is, that's what they did. How could you do that? Yeah, and in fact, I think the new Excel will do that for you automatically. All you got to do is just type cancel, cancel. It says, do you want to fill the rest of the row? Yeah, we do. Do it. Boom. And wow, canceled across the board. Pretty nice. So anyways, that's what they say happened. They say, you can't do that. That's too fast. How dare you? So they sued and they changed it. All those canceled, all those contracts have to be reversed. Now, here's this. The amended complaints pray for similar relief. They say, what? You have to undo those spreadsheet rows. There was no decisional process because you decided too fast. And that's not an impingement on the executive branch, which clearly would have all the power to, decide things because it's happening in their brains. But your brain was working too fast there, Rubio. You need to have spent at least 3 to 5 days, and literally they want process. They want essentially like a trial by a jury if they could get one. Well, we never had our day in court to determine if AIDS kids are going to die in Africa because of Marco Rubio. And we're going to present our evidence to a jury before you can take our money away. What the hell kind of country is this? It says we can cancel it. Get out of here. They seek permanent injunctions matching the provision of the preliminary injunction, saying we got to get our money back and we need it even though our contracts are canceled. And what's so fun about this one is like they were demanding the pause be unfrozen. And the remedy was to just terminate the whole contract. Like, you guys didn't see that one coming? Lawyers are like, no, worst that can happen is the judge rules against you. But, whatever, get her back pay, whatever. But the whole contract gets canceled. And they're all going, uh-oh. So they're now undoing it, which is why they're amending their complaints. Now, they also seek to undo the challenged terminations. It doesn't matter in the original TRO, right? This is where the judge is kind of boxed in here. Because he said, actually, you can cancel things individually. They're trying to find an escape hatch for him so that he can say, well, you're right, it wasn't due process. It wasn't meaningful enough because they canceled too many too quickly. But the judge says, no, like you can cancel them, and also didn't really have a clear framework for them to how those contracts can be canceled. For example, they say in the amended complaint, after they change their arguments, they allege that each tranche of award terminations follows from an action memo by the secretary. So Rubio reviews like 5 pages. Okay, canceled. Action memo. On this date and time, Marco Rubio cancels these, which allegedly, they say, did not provide individualized information about the awards selected for termination, and seeks invalidation of those memos because they weren't specific enough. Like the spreadsheets didn't have enough rows in there, enough details. This was for the AIDS doctors and their vaccine work in Africa, right? And seeks invalidation of those memos and any award terminations pursuant to those memos. So the spreadsheets were not clear enough. Like there was only one line in there. You needed like 1,000 pages that would take you 4 years to read in order to cancel the contract. So they say, look, there's no argument here. They lack jurisdiction. It's pretty clear. By the time they amended and their complaint to try again, the freeze that they originally challenged, that they were so upset about, had already come to an end. There's no freeze anymore. It's canceled. So it's unfrozen. You win. It's unfrozen and canceled. So enjoy. And we had either terminated or retained some of them, right? Some of them they did keep. They said, okay, fine. You're actually doing something useful out there. You can have some money. Hence, they lack standing. They can't come back here and make a claim because this cannot be repeated to them, right? It's not going to be frozen again. We're done. We either accepted them or terminated them. Now, they then challenge, they say, well, the freeze point is moot because you can go back to the decisional point, essentially. But they continue to refocus on the freeze. But this court temporarily restrained that freeze, and there is no dispute that each award has either been terminated or retained. So your little freeze is over. So thanks for playing. Indeed, the agencies did not terminate all of the agreements. Rather, including according to their own allegations, they even admit some of their agreements are retained. They say DAI received termination notices. They admit it for 85 of 91 prime contracts. Look, they kept 6 of them. That's really nice of them to do that. MSH received terminations for 14 of 19. They keep 5 awards? Gosh, and the remaining 5 are in various states other than termination. So they're giving them plenty. They don't need all that money. Now, similarly overtaken by events, they are now trying to stop us from giving any effect to other memos. But this is now about the validity of the terminations, okay? This is not about a freeze. The freeze is over. Contracts are canceled or they've been retained. So now they're trying to amend their argument and say, well, it's not about terminations or pauses. Forget that language. It's all about what happens more downstream of that, which are the economic losses. Whether it's paused or terminated, our harm is we're not getting that government grift money. Now, insofar as they seek relief about this freeze, what does this freeze mean? They can't go backwards and amend this. Under the injunction, we have been making payments to them for work that was owed. Only a small fraction of those payments remain to be made to them, and no permanent injunction is necessary to require us to finish the payments. So we're settled, okay? The people who we retained, they're paid out. There's like a couple outstanding checks we owe them, but we're paying those. There's no question about that. The others were canceled and those are settled. Beyond that, any other determinations are not appropriate to happen here. And their claims are not going to be successful against us under the APA because there is a jurisdictional barrier that is mandatory. They can't just sue here because they feel like it. The APA says you got to exhaust all other remedies. There's got to be no other forums and a bunch of other things. Only if all that is met can you come in here and sue. But cancellation of government contracts has its own forum. It's got a whole system set up for that. They don't want to go there because they know they'll lose there. They know that Judge Amir Ali, who just came in to the United States as a citizen in 2019, but now has the power to issue nationwide injunctions all across America that empower him to essentially seize portions of executive power. They go to him. And what does he do? he orders all the payments get made and force the Supreme Court to come in here and do something about it. Courts consider two factors when analyzing a contract claim, and under those principles, these terminated claims fall within the Tucker Act. Plaintiffs overtly seek an order to immediately reinstate foreign assistance funding, and because the Tucker Act precludes the contract action from being brought here, you can't bring it here. And it is a contract. They want money. This is a classic contractual remedy. Even the economic harms are all money related. And so this is where this case must be heard. They want the terminated awards brought back on. And any contrary position, if you allow them to exploit the APA simply because they don't like the agency action, then that would make every contract dispute in America an APA claim if you wanted to. The Tucker Act cannot be circumvented. It is written in there clearly. And so a very nice filing here. It goes on for a long while. Let's fast forward through the concluding portion of this to see how they wrap this up. And I think... Here, let me save you the scrolling, figure out where that conclusion is. And yeah, gosh, man, that was a whopper. That whole motion, I thought some of that might have been an appendix or something, but that was a 112-page motion to dismiss. Dang! Indraneal sewer? Dang! 112-pager. In conclusion, you should dismiss this case and do it in full. Signed June 3rd, Indraneal Sur, in 112 pages of deliciousness. So that's going into the court. Judge Amir Ali, Global Health Council, will be listening to that, and we'll see what the NGOs have to say in response. So that hit the docket. The judge, I think, is kind of backed into this. He said that they could already terminate these, and they did. Now they're amending their complaints to say, undo the terminations that you already approved. Not sure that's going to work out so well for them. We'll keep our eye on this one. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, so good updates on that one. Now let's turn our attention to the DNC. The DNC loses, and a victory for Trump. Remember, this one came out in Judge Amir Ali's courtroom, and Judge Amir Ali, who we've had some concerns about in prior cases, like when he mandated Trump pay out $2 billion by midnight or else, came down with a good ruling on this one. We do have to admit. And it was after a complaint was filed against Pam Bondi and everybody else. Remember, there was an executive order that said you have to follow the law. And the Democrats flipped out. They sued. They said, follow the law for elections with the FEC reporting all the things? We don't want to do that. We're never going to win an election again if we're forced to obey anything. So they sued. And Judge Amir Ali has now dismissed their lawsuit, saying, you guys have a lack of evidence. You're actually supposed to follow the law, you weird people. So a federal judge on Tuesday dismissed the lawsuit. They say it's a rare court victory for the president. I don't think that's actually true. It might be rare out of this judge's courtroom, but Trump's been doing fairly well in a number of different arenas. In his ruling, District Judge Amir Ali, a Biden appointee, said the DNC failed to demonstrate concrete and imminent injury by being forced to follow the law. I know it's hard for them to do that. Here is the decision. DNC loses their lawsuit against Donald J. Trump, coming out of the District of Columbia, decided by Judge Amir Ali. They explained to us from the court, the Democrats went bananas. The three national political committees sued the president, Pam Bondi, the FEC, and the FEC commissioners because Trump signed an executive order that said follow the law. Now, the committees from the Democrats were so upset about this order, they challenged a specific provision. They said The president in the order says the president and the attorneys general's opinions on questions of law are controlling on all employees. Okay, president and the AG's opinions on questions of law are controlling. They say, you can't, what? Pam gets to decide the law? That's for the Supreme Court. Now, they also say, Trump said this, no employee of the executive branch acting in their official capacity may advance an interpretation of the law as the position of the United States that contravenes the president or the AG's opinion as a matter of law. Okay? It's just establishing that Trump is the president and that Pam is the president and the AG under the president, and that they have all of the powers that are due to their position. Now, the Democrats hated that. Concerned that these pronouncements undermine the FEC's independence, because the Federal Election Committee, they say, is an independent body that just exists somewhere under some branch that no one's ever heard of. They filed a lawsuit to seek a declaration that the FEC, the law, which establishes the FEC and requires its commissioners to exercise, quote, independent legal judgment. They say, we just want a declaration that this is constitutional. And they want an order stopping Trump from applying this section of the executive order to the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, or its commissioners. So don't let Pam and Trump have the final say in that so-called independent agency, because the law says they're independent. And the Democrats are suing to protect them and their independence. That's why the Democrats are suing, because they're so fair and nonpartisan at the FEC. Now, the committees move for preliminary relief, while the president and the AG, and separately the FEC and its commissioners, move to dismiss the action for lack of jurisdiction. So you can't sue. There's no claim here. No one's done anything wrong. Nobody's intending to do anything wrong. Trump's not usurping FEC power. Trump's not saying violate their law. Now, in response to the committee's lawsuit, Trump and Bondi, they disclaim a challenge to the constitutionality. Now, Trump and Pam, they also offer affirmative representations to the court that they have not attempted to apply, and they're aware of no indication that there ever will be an attempt to apply the executive order to dictate or to influence the FEC's interpretations of FECA. And counsel for the FEC also says to the court that the agency and its commissioners would not understand directives received from the president or the AG to interfere with their independent judgment. So like, even if they send us something, like, we're still going to be independent. So the judge says, okay. So Trump says he's not going to do anything bad. And the FEC says if Trump did anything bad, they wouldn't receive anything or do anything bad. So judge is going, what? So on this record, lacking any specific allegations that the challenged section has been or will be applied anywhere, the court grants Trump's motion to dismiss, because the Democrats, like the big whining babies they are constantly, have not presented any evidence. There is a lack of concrete and imminent injury sufficient to establish standing and ripeness. Oh, get out of here. You have no standing. How's it feel? Now, here's the background. In 1971, Congress passed the FECE to regulate campaign fundraising and spending in federal elections. It sets limits on campaign contributions, discusses how committees can organize themselves, how the reporting requirements work, and more. Less than 1 year after the FECA became law, affiliates of Nixon's re-election campaign contributions, they used campaign contributions to pay for burglary and wiretapping of the DNC. Then that came to light. The Senate Select Committee investigated Watergate. Great. Congress responded and amended FECA. Then they came back and they said, you know what we're going to do now? We're going to have a bipartisan oversight board. Yeah. That fines Maxine Waters $68,000 for fraud, and then makes criminal referrals for Dinesh D'Souza. Yeah, stuff like that. So Congress understood itself to be creating an independent, nonpartisan agency to supervise the enforcement of the laws relating to the conduct of the elections. Yeah. Then the Supreme Court recognized the FEC in the years after as, quote, inherently bipartisan. This is the judge writing. And he says, yeah, they're patterned on a classic independent regulatory agency provision. Congress says 6 members appointed by the president with advice and consent of the Senate. Congress also embedded that independence in their decision making, and they're independent, blah, 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 which is not true. They're not independent. The whole thing, Trump's not going to make that argument here, but could, I think, in the future if he wanted to. Now, the DNC, DSCC, and the Democrat Congressional Campaign Committee, they sued. Virtually everything the committees do is about raising money. And so the FEC says that they got guidance and advisory opinions and all this stuff. And what Trump is doing is going to undermine their work. So, okay, that's the background. Now here, Trump came out, issued an executive order. It says that executive branch employees acting in their official capacities cannot advance an interpretation of the law that contravenes the president or the AG. Shortly after Trump signed the order, committee sued. Want a declaration. They say the provisions insulating the FEC are constitutional, and they want part of Trump's orders to be enjoined so they can't spread that around all the agencies. Now, the president and the AG separately and its commissioners, they filed motions to dismiss. Trump says no. FEC says no. Get out. So the judge will analyze it. He says, well, the law says the national committees can sue for these things. Here, their first count says that Trump's order is trying to create authoritative and controlling legal interpretations, and so we can sue over that. It requests certification, so the DC Circuit Court of Appeals can also hear as well. Now, the president and the attorney general, they want a dismissal. They're relinquishing any challenge to the constitutionality of the law, right? So they're not going to say it's not independent. Like they said that, or they're going to say that about other things. They're not there on this one yet. They repeatedly urge that certification to the DC Circuit would be inappropriate because none of the parties has asserted that this is unconstitutional, right? So we don't need to weigh into that issue yet. That will live another day. But we don't have to get there because these committees don't even have standing, right? So we don't need to go that far. The committee's second count says stop a part of this order from going into effect. But here, Pam and Trump say, no, there's no sufficient concrete or imminent injury from that portion of the provision. They say Section 7 of Trump's order does not specifically mention or require that any action happen at the FECs, not targeting them. And even at oral arguments, they said there are no plans to apply this to the FEC. And the FEC says even if they tried to apply it to us, wouldn't matter to us anyway. We'd be independent. So the possibility that Trump and Pam, writes the judge, would take the extraordinary step of trying to bind the FEC is not sufficiently concrete for Article 3 injury. Wow. So, yeah, I mean, they could do it. They haven't. And just because you're worried about it, Democrats, chill out. Take a chill pill. Whether viewed as a question of standing that requires an injury that is concrete, particularized, or hypothetical, requiring an injury that is not dependent is too short, right? It's too speculative. It can't count. Future injuries and Article 3 standing requires a lot more. Here, the committees do not allege that Pam or Trump has done anything with the FEC. They don't even plausibly allege that they plan to do so. So the court cannot conclude just because they wrote an order that there is going to be a substantial risk. While courts have allowed people to bring actions like this, you got to point to a specific action. Here, there is no allegation that Trump has prohibited or expressed an intention to prohibit any actions, and there's no credible threat of enforcement. And so their claim, the DNC, the Democrats, that their injury does not depend on future action. We're being injured now. They say the executive order language that requires the executive employees to abide by the president is marking the extinction of the FEC. Extinction. Everyone's always going to die with them, constantly. The extinction of the FEC's independence because Trump passed that order. Now, the committee point out that they're regulated by the FEC. Everybody is. And they say it's going to cost us a lot of money Now that they're going to be taking orders, we have to go through and hire lawyers to evaluate and all change our campaign strategies. And we're going to be chilled from engaging in political activity because the FEC is going to be beholden to Trump. Well, the court does not doubt the committees would have cause for concern if their independence was compromised. They oversee a lot of things. They oversee a lot of things. And the FEC, both parties are engaged in massive financial fraud through the forms of smurfing, or whatever that phrase is, where you've got Democrats making donations to other Democrats from fake addresses all around the country. Anyways, now the Supreme Court has explicitly rejected that they can say a chilling effect is enough for standing. And in other cases, it hasn't been met as well. So it follows that the committee's allegation of their current burdens, they say, we're just so scared that Trump is going to do this. It's not an Article 3 injury, Democrats. Okay, so just go chill. At bottom, the committee's claim that they have standing is not a concrete basis. They have not done that here. The committee points to the executive order, but no injury. They don't even single out the FEC in the executive order. The committees have not alleged any concrete steps that are going to be coming soon. And to the contrary, in fact, the court is mindful that even the FEC has disavowed and promised they're not going to change anything, even if something comes their way. Now, it's meaningful that the very agency and offices created have made representations. This is going to have no effect on them at all. So why are you crying on their behalf, Democrats? We know why. Because they want control of the FEC. Now, the court doors are open to the parties if something happens, if Trump comes in here and takes over the FEC. But until then, this court must dismiss this case for lack of jurisdiction, and therefore does so. And any other motion for a preliminary injunction is denied as moot. Signed by Judge Amir Ali, in a good decision from this judge, born in Canada, who became a citizen in 2019. Out of the ordinary from what we've seen before on this judge, owing and providing deference to the executive branch. Wonder why that is. Maybe because he got slapped down by the Supreme Court when he said, how about you provide due regard for the feasibility of any compliance timelines, and then slap down the mandate for those payments to be made, even though it also mostly became moot at the time because of the operation of the processing of the terminations of the payments. But as we see, a nice ruling from Judge Amir Ali. Major victory for Trump. Democrats lose again. Good news. We want the executive branch to follow the hierarchy of power. Other people are not the attorney general. Pam Bondi is. So if their interpretation of the law conflicts with hers, they can leave. Just like what happened with Iraz Ruvani, who was fired after he put forward his own interpretation of a withholding of removal in the Kilmar case. But nice victory. Shout out to the DOJ for victory in an unfavorable court in DC. We'll keep our eye on this one. We'll see if the DNC appeals this one and where it goes. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, now we got some Karine business to attend to. But this is worth it. There's, I know any Karine's a little too much Karine, but this is a fun one. Karine's team is melting down. Karine has decided she's going to abandon the Democratic Party, the same party that she helped to destroy through her never-ending lies behind the podium in the White House press briefing room. Well, now she's got a new book out, or coming out soon. It's called this, Independent. A look inside a broken White House, outside the party lines. And we've been waiting for the onslaught of the books to come out. Didn't know Karine was going to be the first one to stab Joe in the back after her years of loyalty. Thought it'd be someone else, but nope, it's Karine. So she came out, and a lot of people had some intimation that this was going to be coming soon. You remember this guy, Alex Thompson, who is the author of the original Sin book that Jake Tapper is kind of palling around on. And he says, there's something strange afoot, because what the publicist, what the HR person for Karine is saying now doesn't match what she said then. And we were asking Karine about her book deals and her cable TV deals and all these things. And so Alex Thompson says, guess what? If you don't tell the truth, you get exposed. And off the record no longer applies. So these off the record emails are now coming out. We'll come back to this. 2024 email from Miss Squire. Miss Squire is not happy that Alex is sending her emails, and she fired off this email back where she just unloads. She's big mad. But this is the woman that we're talking about. So recall that Karine just published this book, and we'll listen to a little bit of this before I introduce you to the person who is her publicist, this woman right here, who is Glenda Squire, I believe is the name. We'll come back. Gilda Squire. We're going to check out her website. This is her media website. It's incredible. Wait till you see it. But here is what Karine has. This is part of what her publicist is putting together. And she announced this today on Instagram. And Karine is disabling the comments on this Instagram. Comments on this post have been limited. How come, Karine?
Right now, what I have decided to do, and I really have thought long and hard about this, is to follow my own compass. And that's what I've done. And that's what this book does. And here's the truth. And here's how I will lay it out to you. I think we need to stop thinking in boxes and think outside of our boxes and not be so partisan. And the way that I see moving forward in this space that we're in right now is, if you are willing to stand side by side with me, regardless of your how you identify politically, and as long as you respect the community that I belong to and vulnerable communities that I respect, I will be there with you.
Well, that seems like it's a non-starter. So we don't know what communities you're talking about, but no. So that's Karine. And we don't need to listen to the rest of it. You get the gist of it. But she put this book out and she's selling it for $29. A look inside a broken White House, outside the party lines. She was inside the party lines, lying about the party. She was complicit in the actual destruction and the brokenness. And now she's going to come out and explain it. We're excited about this. I think that the more of this that starts to pile up, the more evidence that we've got that the auto pen is a real serious issue that needs to be investigated and probably legally addressed at some point in the form of indictments or pardon challenges or congressional hearings or whatever. But the more that we have internal blood sport happening as they all try to get rich off their books, the better it is to undo all of Biden's disastrous effects. Now, the person who's behind this is this woman. And we're going to go through this email because she flipped out on Alex Thompson. It was epic. But before we read these emails, let me just show you who she is. This is her website. It's called gildasquire.com. And I haven't done anything to this website. Just here's a quick refresh. You just go right here, gildasquire.com. You're like, you know what? I need a media person who's going to put together a nice media package for me and do a great job and represent me to all my people. Karine's like, I know. Squire Media and Management. Wow, look at this. Wow, it's like a grainy picture of New York or something. So here's what we do. Don't really know. That's the website. Brand marketing, media training, public relations and talent. Scroll down, big black box, perfect. Says, we're here to serve you with some contact information. And then here's her photo. Now, what's so great about this website? I was like, wow, this is outstanding. I wonder if I could hire her to really help me with my public relations. Take this show to the moon. She can design a nice website for us, right? So you go over here and you say, well, I'm going to go check out her Instagram down here. Let's click this and see if this takes us over to her Instagram. Here we go. Click. Oh, that didn't work that well. All right. Well, how about this? Let's try her X account. Here we go. Let's click this one. This one will work. Oh. Huh. All right. So that didn't work either. Is her LinkedIn going to work over here? That one might work. Is the Facebook going to work? The Facebook's probably going to work, but the 2 and 4 are not working. Oh, no. So you know what? I want to go to the main homepage. So I'm just going to click this, this main image up here because this will take me to the main homepage wherever I'm at, right? Like everybody in the world knows how to create a website where this is by default on a WordPress. Like, as long if you click this button, all it does is refresh. All you got to do. No special coding required. It's by default. Watch. Here, let's just refresh. Let's go to the homepage. Here, watch this. It's a 404. Anyways, so that's who Karine hired. It's just amazing. So she is so good at her job that here's what happened. So Politico is reporting she's leaving the Democratic Party. Her former White House colleagues have some thoughts, and so they're unhappy about it. She's leaving, long simmering grievances and more. We'll come back to that. But here is what happened in the background. So there's, as part of that article in Politico, Alex Thompson caught this, right? He says, look, they wrote in Politico, a New York-based publicist called Gilda Squire, who worked informally with Jean-Pierre while she was in the White House and was on multiple occasions, copied on official emails before staffers raised the issue, another former official said. All right, so Karine was colluding with Gilda 404, and they were colluding together before Karine even left, right? We were wondering what the heck is going on with Karine. So Alex says, okay, multiple occasions. Now, Squire previously served as publicity director for HarperCollins Publishers and also did PR for Penguin, according to her LinkedIn. Now, and Jean-Pierre was the subject of several lengthy profiles in lifestyle publications, including Vogue and Women's Health, traveled to New York to appear on The View. Who did all that? Was it Gilda? We don't know. But what Alex says, he says, funny, because when he asked about this, the White House repeatedly told me, and this is Alex Thompson, the same dude who helped write the original Sin book, co-author. He says, the White House repeatedly told me that this was not true. Back when I asked about Gilda Squire's involvement in February 2024, he says, actually, I have a record of this. I asked about it. They called him a liar. And he said, oh, you did? How about this? So he says, okay, well, if you don't tell the truth, off the record no longer applies. I'll share some emails that I sent when I was investigating this. He said, here is Gilda Squire's denial at the time. She said, this is unequivocally untrue. Wrote this. Hey, Miss Squire. I hope you are well. I'm a reporter at Axios. I'm planning to report that the White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, has recently enlisted you to help her as she navigates this, let's be honest, crazy situation with Kirby and the White House. Sent February 15th, 2024. My deadline is at 7 p.m. tonight. Do you have a moment to talk? Here's my number. Signed, Alex. Would you like me to report on that? She responds, hey, good evening. Nice to meet you. May I respond off the record? Yes, you can. Sent from my iPhone. This is unequivocally untrue. Thank you. There you go. Turns out it is true. Axios is reporting that Gilda, worked informally with Jean while she was in the White House, copied on official emails. She's helping to draft the book, right? She's gobbling up evidence for the book. So then Thompson says, well, you're a liar. You said it was untrue. Politico's reporting it's true. So you lied to me. So now those are the emails. And what happened is Alex responded to Gilda. Gilda, Karine's team member, is not happy. Says, I told Gilda today that I planned on using these emails. He said back to her, I'm going to use those emails you sent. You said you weren't working with her. I got emails. You said you weren't. You said, now we know you are. You're a liar. I'm going to publish it. Here is her response from Gilda Squire. She sent this to Alex Thompson. How dare you write to me in this tone? Karine and I have been friends for a few years, which is allowed. At the time you reached out in 2024, We were not working together. Karine and I did not decide to engage on a professional level until after she left. The White House capitalized. You might want to get your facts straight before you accuse someone of being a liar. Please do not ever contact me again. Gilda Squire at her amazing website, gildasquire.com. Go check it out and 404 yourself to death. So, hilarious. She's big mad. And how dare you write to me in this tone? Is she got like that's kind of how Fannie Willis sounded. It's almost got a Fannie Willis vibe to it. Like they went to the same training or something, same media training. I don't know. But that happened. Now, we've got a lot of questions about this, and more specifically about the Biden incapacity. Of course, Politico's reporting saying that they're not happy with Karine and what she's doing here. They say the attention-grabbing ploy lit up Democrat and Biden alumni texting groups. They're all mad at her. How dare Karine? We defended her. Reignited frustrations that burned for years about Karine, according to 7 former Biden officials granted anonymity. 7 people? Sheesh. One former official recalled that Jean had joked about becoming an independent even while on the job, an off-key comment for someone to make who's part of the Democrat orthodoxy. You can never, joking about being an independent, you're now dead to us. Another former official, look what happened to RFK. Gosh, they almost took his whole life out. Another former official said that Karine had begun working during the Biden administration with that publicist and that person was being copied on all of the emails. Everyone thinks this is a grift, said some official. As Biden's press secretary, Jean's halting, ineffectual briefings exasperated reporters. Wow, they're turning on her. So Politico's turning on her and routinely offered material for the Republican Party's main account on X, which really soured them. Shout out to Rapid Response and Media Lies and all the other accounts. She frustrated colleagues throughout the West Wing for focusing on raising her own profile. Well, come on. You can't, I mean, she was the first lesbian, black, female, gay press secretary who did one of the worst jobs ever. I mean, which is also historic in and of itself, you know. Now, the teasing of the book project by Hatchett stated that she's going to offer her view of the 3 weeks of turmoil following Biden's miserable debate that culminated in him dropping the re-election bid. Yeah, this is the blast zone, right? This is the splash area. This is where Joe Biden signed the pardons, issued all those EOs and all sorts of other stuff. And she's going to dish on that. Great. Maybe she can come into James Comer's hearing and answer some questions about it. Speaking of James Comer, they sent in new letters today. They said, hey, here's breaking news. Chairman Comer just sent a wave of second letters to Biden's top advisors demanding they appear for transcribed interviews or face subpoenas. They got Michael Donilon, Anita Dunn, Ron Klain, Bruce Reed, Steve Ricchetti, and they're all on this list here, getting hit with new letters. Oversight Committee just posted about this. They said, as part of the investigation into the cover-up into Joe's failing brain, Chairman Comer is working on it. Last Congress, he subpoenaed 3 key White House aides, and they obstructed that investigation back then. But now, Comer renewed his request to Biden's physician and other people. The committee expects the witnesses to voluntarily comply. Otherwise, Comer will issue subpoenas this week to compel their appearance. Now, let's see what this letter to Ron Klain looks like. He was the White House chief of staff for quite some time, one of the more high-profile figures. Comer sent this one over to him from the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. Says, the committee is now investigating the role of senior White House officials in possibly usurping authority from Dementia Joe and the ramifications of the White House staff that's intent on hiding his rapidly worsening mental and physical faculties. Now, the committee has been investigating this for nearly a year, and we seek to understand who made key decisions inside this administration possibly without Joe's consent. And so, Ron, we request your testimony to evaluate your eyewitness account of Joe's decline, saying you served as the chief of staff for Joe. Before departing the White House in 23, you had been by Joe's side for more than 3 decades, and you returned to his side in 2024 to aid the campaign and to prepare him for the debate with Trump. According to an interview, you cut short debate prep due to the president's fatigue and lack of familiarity with the subject matter, and you said that the former president didn't really understand what his argument was on inflation. Oops. And the scope of your responsibilities, like, he doesn't understand. No capacity. We got Ron Klain, no capacity. Alex Thompson, Jake Tapper, tons of witnesses, no capacity. Karine comes out, no capacity. The scope of your responsibilities, both official and otherwise, in personal interactions cannot go on without investigation. If White House staff carried out a strategy lasting months or even years to hide his condition or to perform his duties, Congress may need to consider a legislative response. Now, the committee believes you have information critical to this investigation, Ron, and request your appearance for a transcribed interview on July 24th. And so by June 1, 2025, please confirm June 11 that you are going to come to this interview. Ron, you better show up. You got 1 week, buddy boy. Provide an alternative date if you cannot come and meet it. Or 3, notify the committee that you will require a subpoena to compel your attendance in for this deposition. This is not a deadline to inform us that you need additional time. So let us know if you're going to be here or not, and we'll get our subpoena in order. We have a lot of power to do this. Sincerely, your friend, James Comer from Congress. All right, that's Comer. Now, he was also in Congress today talking a lot more about this with this dude called Turner, Daniel Turner, PTF. Founder and executive director of an organization called Power of the Future, which is fighting for American energy, exposing the socialist radical green lies. He's a sheep and cattle farmer and looks like a cool dude. So here is what he said when he was talking with James Comer today in Congress.
Mr. Turner, I've launched an investigation, or the committee has, we all have, into the role of former senior White House officials in possibly abusing the authority of former President Joe Biden while the former president was rapidly deteriorating mentally and physically. We will be conducting transcribed interviews of a number of former White House officials to understand who was really making the decisions for President Biden. Your group, Power the Future, has expressed concerns that over half a dozen of the Biden administration executive actions, which were signed by the auto pen, related to climate policy, should be deemed null and void, again, due to the fact that they were signed by the auto pen without any public comment from President Biden confirming his knowledge of them. Now, why is it important that the American people know the truth about whether President Biden knowingly signed these orders, making significant and drastic shifts in our energy policy?
Thank you for the question, sir. We're looking at this from the sense of deceit of the American people. This is impersonation of the president. Staffers, of course, have a lot of leniency in what they do working on behalf of the president, but these executive orders that we identified, there's no evidence of Joe Biden in first person, in his voice as president, talking about them. And I see some Pennsylvanians on the panel. When you ban the export of liquid natural gas and you never get asked about it in person, one has to wonder if Joe Biden did it or if a staffer did it on his behalf.
Now, you specifically expressed concern that President Biden was not aware of that specific action to implement the executive order pausing liquefied natural gas permits. Now, why are you specifically concerned the president was unaware of that specific order?
Well, there's an anecdote from earlier this year where Speaker of the House Johnson mentioned he was in conversation with President Biden and brought it up. And the president said, I don't know what you're talking about. At the time, that was understood as, wow, maybe the president's a little worse off than we realized. God. But maybe two things can be true. Maybe he really didn't know what Speaker Johnson was talking about. Mm-hmm. Maybe he had no idea he passed this executive order. And if the president has never asked about it and he hides from the press and there's no opportunity for him to get asked in public about it, how do we know he actually did it? And these are serious executive orders. This is not...
It is bizarre. You know, when President Trump signed his executive orders, we saw him sign the executive orders. He had a big event. He was, they were talking about the executive orders. They said, this is what this specific
out
executive
pen.
order is. We never saw any of that.
No, and lives were destroyed, sir. And when you ban the export of liquid natural gas, there are hundreds of thousands of men and women who work in the natural gas industry. Lives are destroyed. People went bankrupt because of that.
Yeah.
And we have no evidence that Joe Biden himself actually
We haven't
ordered it.
found any.
Yeah, and where were the injunctions on that one? Where were the national injunctions by these judges in D.C. or judges in Pennsylvania or judges in Louisiana saying, you're going to cancel these contracts? You're not going to allow what has already been developed to proceed, and this is going to cause massive economic damage to Americans. You've got investments here and bought property and started businesses, got licenses, started marketing, staying up. Don't care about any of that, okay? But if you're a foreign aid organization and your AIDS medication or whatever is going to be delayed to your grifting NGO, wherever it happens to be around the world in Ukraine, then courts will bend over backwards to protect those people. Or illegal aliens. Court will act in 14 hours to make sure that these illegals get all of the benefits and privileges that exist in the world for them. But if you get locked down for COVID, eat it. They shut down an entire industry to save the planet. Eat it. You're just a citizen. Maybe if we had a country that cared about its citizens, this stuff wouldn't be happening, and we're working on building that now.
Evidence either that, and ironically, unlike some of the investigations we've done in the past with respect to the former president, not many of the colleagues on the other side of the aisle are disputing many of the things that have come out in the Tapper book, the things that have come out with statements like what former Transportation Secretary Buttigieg and others have said, that they were shielded from the president. So we look forward to having these staffers come in. Our committee will be conducting transcribed interviews, possibly depositions, depending on how quickly they come in, and hopefully we'll get the truth to the American people. We're going to see if these executive orders were really authorized by the president, or if this was being done unilaterally by some unnamed bureaucrats. Madam Chair, thank you for this.
Named Hunter is probably who did it. So the more the wheels start to come off the Democratic train, the more we get people like Karine, and there will be more of them. I'm sure Psaki's sitting over there on MSNBC. She's got a book out. She beat me. Psaki's probably working on hers. And you got to imagine there's many more. I saw Xavier Becerra, Health and Human Services, is running for governor of California, which is also going to be a weird thing to watch there. They're like, we love lockdowns in California. So there's going to be a lot of internal knives out for each other in the Democratic Party, proverbially. And of course, we're going to be here to watch it all unfold and demand answers from our congresspeople who've got the capability to call these people in, do an inquiry, just like they did with Bannon, Navarro. They could have a whole committee on this. We could form a mental competency select committee and demand everybody come in here because our presidency was stolen over the last election. And that cannot be allowed to happen. So hopefully they drag these people in. Michael Donelon, Anita Dunn, Ronald Klain, Bruce Reed, Steve Ricchetti. Get in there. Answer those questions, or there will be subpoenas coming for your booties. All right, so, my friends, if you're just joining us, what a beautiful day it has been. We got 3 connections, 1 no connection on Rumble, which, my apologies, still trying to figure that out, and we'll work on that. But if you're just joining us, we had a great stream today. We talked about the dismissal filing, which came in the case against the so-called AIDS doctors, the vaccine coalition, the global health doctors, and all of those NGOs. Been battling this case for a while. It went up to the Supreme Court, came back down, as we see here, and then they just submitted from the DOJ a whopper of a 112-page motion to dismiss from Indranil Sur, which is a hell of a filing. So we read through a good portion of that, saw why Trump says this case should be gone. There's no jurisdiction over this. The contracts with all the NGOs and USAID folks have already been canceled and terminated. And so there's nothing more to discuss. So we'll see what Judge Amir Ali does on that one and keep our eye on that there. We also saw another victory, also out of Amir's courtroom, which was here the dismissal of the DNC election lawsuit. They said Trump cannot tell people to follow the law. That's illegal. If Trump tells people to follow the law, that's going to be devastating for the Democratic Party. And so all three of them, the DNC, the DSCC, and the DCCC, all sued to say, tell Trump not to tell other people to follow the law. Otherwise, this will be devastating to our case. So we read through that filing and saw Judge Amir Ali come out with a very nice, reasoned ruling. So we're happy about that. But we also saw Karine and the Democrats are in the depths of despair, and Karine's weird team member called Gilda, who can't even build a website, which is one of the most fun things. Let me see if they fix this yet. Here, let's just click this again. 404. No, not going to work. So not working over there. She sent a nasty gram to Alex Thompson. How dare you write to me in this tone, Alex? Please do not ever contact me again. So I hope he responded with like, okay, I won't. Or just something. No problem. No problem. And then tomorrow he can say, hey, just making sure you got my confirmation that I'll never contact you again. Just wanted to confirm that. Anyways, all right. So that, my friends, was the day. And thanks for hanging with us as we're working through some of our technical difficulties on the Rumble. Usually makes me want to, it makes me unhappy when that happens. Let's just leave it there. But now, my friends, it's time to hear from you. And we'll see what you have to say about all of this and more. I saw some great donos come in. Thank you for your amazing support. I don't know what that image is. Oh, okay. It's a spaceship. I don't know what that was, but it's a spaceship. All right, that makes sense. So we got some great comments and some great donos that have come in, my friends. Thank you for sending these in. It's Hump Day. What's up, Donut? Linking us here. It's a happy Hump Day. Shout out to all of our beautiful pups out there all across the fruited plain of America. Doggone it. What's up? Hey, says, just became a member last night. Love your content. It's my 26th anniversary, so I bought you as my gift to myself. Don't worry, my husband gets much more. Winky face? Oh my gosh. There's a winky face. What the hell does that mean, doggone it? Ooh, it's going to be spicy over there tonight. I was going to say something about doggy style, but we're not going to go there. We're not going to go there. Okay, doggone it. Just became a membo. Thank you for being here. Doggone it. With the dogs here. How appropriate. So happy 26th anniversary to you both. Hopefully you're celebrating amazingly well. Thanks for becoming a membo. Thanks for joining up. Hopefully I just didn't make you cancel your membership, but we appreciate it. Happy anniversary to both of you. What? 26th anniversary. Golly, that's amazing. You guys are awesome. And it sounds like you're having a lot of fun. Shout out to your husband. What's up, Sheila Poo? Hey, like, share, fist bump, gift, subscribe, selfie, all the things. Thank you, Sheila Poo. You're amazing. Thank you, Sheila Poo. A million hugs to you. Thank you for bringing in or encouraging people to bring in more membos. Spuds is here. Hey, it's 90 degrees in central New York today. Even the palm trees on the Erie Canal are in bloom. Is that a real palm tree? Yeah. Is that a real palm? It looks like it kind of came out of Minecraft or something, but yeah, beautiful, blossoming over there in the seas of the Erie Canal. Palm trees? Well, very tropical land you got there. We had some nice rain here in Prescott, Arizona. It was a gorgeous day. Lots of piddle paddling on the roof up there, you know. Hey, what's up? Sun Tzu Me says, you are the free press the founding fathers spoke of. Wow, man, Sun Tzu, that is a really nice compliment. I know this might sound like self-aggrandizing or facetious or something, or maybe too dramatic, but I think that's right. Like having these civic conversations, you being a part of the conversation, I analogize to like the Federalist Papers. Like these conversations we're having about the structure of our government, about the law of our government, I analogize it to the Federalist Papers. We were not writing letters and publishing them. We're actually having conversations and these discussions. So, and I think it's very important. And when people say things like, oh, politics is just, it's so stressful and I don't like to think about it and I don't want to be engaged. And so other people can deal with it. It really kind of rubs me the wrong way because Like, would you say that about your physical health? Like about your personal health? Would you just say, I don't care. Who cares? I worry about other things. And some people do. Some people don't care at all. Like literally, I don't care. Whatever. If I drop dead tomorrow, I don't care. Okay. That's one way to do it. But, and if that is you, then I guess this doesn't apply to you. But if you do care about yourself internally, then how can you also not care about what's happening externally, right? Because politics is your food. Politics is your education. Politics is your media. Politics is your economics, your taxing, your spending, the soundness of your currency, all of these things. So if you're like, well, I'd just rather watch sports or something because politics is so stressful. Okay, that's fine. But you're making a decision to neglect that area of our body politique. And I don't appreciate that. So anyways, Sun Tzu, my point in sharing that is I think it's a testament to you, to us, to everybody here that we're engaging in the conversation. And that's not just to pat, all you and ourselves on the back, but it is important because these issues are toxic and stressful and they do drive people away. People go, gosh, we just elected Trump and now we're going to spend $2 trillion more. It gets very defeating, but we have to stay together. We have to continue to have fun, keep the energy up on our side. And that's how we won last time. That's how we're going to continue to win. So Sun Tzu, thank you for that. Thanks for letting me riff on that too. Doan, Rubio reminded Van Hollen that insults from idiots are the highest form of praise. Not so, little Marco. Yeah, from Doan. Yeah, Rubio was very excited. I think he said that he would actually, I think he made a quip about that. He said when he talked to Trump, the fact that 99 senators voted for him was not probably a good thing. Actually, like a downside. It's like, wow, everyone likes you? I don't know if that's good for us. He said, well, don't worry, Mr. President. Now that number is a lot lower than it used to be. It's like pretty funny. Hey, recovering hillbilly. Rob, you need an IT nerd on staff. Your Rumble feed isn't working again. Or if I could just have a functional brain, apparently. I don't know why it's not working. I mean, it was working like until this week, essentially. What's the day? I didn't change anything. Like nothing in the process changed at all. And now it's not working. So I don't know what's going on. Anyways, thank you, recovering hillbilly. I don't know if, I don't know. You're probably right. What's up, Milo phone bill? Just make up some mumbo jumbo line. Like we used a pivot table formula that worked through all 75 million contracts. Man, I hate pivot tables. I don't like math in general, but I had this professor at ASU who she couldn't speak hardly a lick of English. Like the whole math department was like foreigners over there. Couldn't understand anything. Like people had to leave her class because I don't understand what she's saying. And I didn't either, but I didn't leave the class. And she was telling us pivot tables because she was from France. You have to pivot? The pivot table. Like, what the hell did you just say to all of us? The whole class is totally gone. Anyways, I have a lot of anger at pivot tables. Says, anyways, formula looked for all the contracts that had status reports and were asking for less money than the last fiscal year and XYZZX. Sorry to say only about the 45 from Milo phone bill. Thank you, Milo. Tobo, why shouldn't it be Congress alone who has standing? In the case where the president makes decisions of canceling contracts and spending, such as all the last minute spending of the Biden administration. I say make Congress bring the suit if they aren't satisfied. Why shouldn't it be Congress alone who has standing? To challenge like any action of the president. Well, I think as a practical matter, because then nothing would ever get challenged. So in other words, like there would be no lawsuits. Like you couldn't sue the government at all, essentially, unless Congress sued. Yeah, I think that for us to have a judiciary, like a third party, basically like a third branch of government, like if you want a functional judiciary, the populace needs access to the system. So if Congress is passing laws for the people and the president is screwing something up, like they work for us, they don't work for each other. So if we're being harmed, we need a method of recourse in order to go sue, and that's why we have a judiciary. Otherwise, if Congress was the only people who could sue, they would never do it. They would just, they already delegate everything to the executive branch anyway. So I think it's just a structural kind of check and balance that we have, which is to our benefit. Sun Tzu Me, what's up? Welcome aboard, Sun Tzu Me. Great to have you. Grab the members only stream from this morning. Should be a good one waiting for you, ready there. Chubby says, Karine giving a view outside the party lines? Since when? All she's done is toe the Dem line for 4 years. She's just another grifter trying to sell another book with things conservatives have been pointing out for years. Yeah, and ordinarily, I wouldn't be that interested in it. But I think what we're seeing is a little bit of a snowball effect happen. It's like death by 1,000 cuts. Jake Tapper comes out with a book. She comes out with a book. What's in it? You start adding all these things up together. That makes for a pretty compelling complaint. You say Joe Biden's pardon should be invalidated. Here's why. He didn't sign them, and there's no chain of custody for that. And even if there were, there's no capacity for this because all of these other books. You at least have a claim. I still think that the courts are going to be very reticent to even do anything about the pardon power. So we're going to need a lot of evidence, and this is just one more addition. But yeah, I don't know if it's going to be any good because of her publicist. Looks pretty terrible. Chat with me. What's up? Hey, Democrats know their party is dead, and they're trying to recreate themselves as something new and different as independents. Karine is an independent. There was no change of heart or policy. It's just a renaming. Oh, they're changing their political pronouns is what's happening. Got it. She is a dynamic person. So, today she's going to transition into an independent. She's a T. She's an L and a T now, too. And she went from a D to an I. Oh, my gosh. It's totally out of control. And why? Karen sounds like she is inside some box. How can she be there for me if she's inside the box? I don't know. It's a conundrum. I think it's like Schrodinger's cat. NY Renal says, Karen, master of communication. It's all the free Obama internet she got. From that, all she could give us was a 404. Oh, yeah, maybe that's right. Yeah, maybe she was on Kamala's broadband internet. She's like, I can't make any more websites. Everything just keeps 404ing. It's hosted on Pete Buttigieg's servers. Yeah. Doan, classic and hilarious how the left eats its own. Yeah, Politico, man, was just slicing and dicing Karine. No one liked her press briefings anyway. She was so dumb, and she always made things that Republicans took out of context and posted on the internet that we had a lot of fun with, actually. It's like, wow, that was pretty fast. Why? Because she talked about your hero, Joe? Pinochet's helicopter tour says you can't blame Karine. They used her as a prop and a shield. You can't blame Karine. They used her as a prop and a shield. She was like a shiny object just to distract everybody. Doan says the dramatic reversal of numerous Biden positions in the past on hot buttons like illegal immigration and energy is solid evidence of the auto pen fraud. Yeah, it's like, why would he make that change? Yeah, all of a sudden, in the final hours, Joe Biden just realized that suddenly he hates oil, even though he's in Delaware right next to Pennsylvania and like the whole industry up there. Weird. Hey, Zone Girl says, Karine, you forgot to say she was an immigrant. Oh, she's an immigrant too? Wow. And gay and black and lesbian and first ever of all the things. Yes, Karine's parents were Haitian immigrants. And she was born in France before her family moved to Queens, New York when she was 5. Etc., etc. Rick D says, hey, this is what caused the failure of the Starship launch that you showed. Rick D, filling in the gaps on the last Starship launch, says the blue plume in the pic is liquid methane venting from a tank leak. It caused the vehicle to lose attitude control and break up upon entry. Rick is sharing this. This is the plasma. This is what the plasma beams look like. Plasma from the uncontrolled entry and control fin burning. Man. So they're learning a bunch of good stuff as to how not to have that happen again. It's cool what they're doing up there. Thank you, Rick D, for flagging it for us. Doan, hey, Ducey scooped the lone mismatched auto pen sig pardoning Hunter at a recent White House presser that looked like it was written by a 7-year-old. Yeah, I think we played that clip yesterday where it was like Joe Biden was not filling out his name. Ducey even mentioned that, I think, to Caroline. Pinochet says, why is no one saying what is obvious? Obama ran the policy, military. Obama caught in the UK bunker with NATO and the auto pen were interviewing the wrong people. It's the Obama people. Yeah, I can see how they could do that. They're doing it with the FBI. Where's all the records of the FBI's January 6th involvement? It's like they don't have much of it because it was mostly Homeland Security. So go talk to Alejandro. G-Man, what's up? I majored in applied math and physics. The biggest thing I learned was how to understand Indian and Chinese accents, LOL. It was crazy. I was in math. And I had one professor who was so bad, they removed him. They're like, okay, you're gone. And I sat the first class. I'm like, this is hysterical. No one. And so the guy, it was actually the funniest thing in the world. Kind of sad, but he would say something and the class would be totally dead-eyed. Then he'd turn around and write it on the board. I might have dropped that class. I might have dropped it. He'd turn around and write on the board. He'd say, son. Turn around and then write it. And then turn around and say it. And then turn around and write it. The class was like in super slow motion. I think I dropped it that day, now that I think about it. Rob White, if I only had a brain, Rumble Democrats cut relations with family members when you try to talk about or defend Trump, MAGA, or Republicans. From Rumble, Democrats cut relations and family members when you try to talk about, yeah, I think that's normally true. And personally, I'm fine with that, like personally. You know, people want to cut because of those things, perfectly fine with that. I made peace with that back during COVID. You want to be a psycho about these policies, or you want to mandate this for me or all these? I don't care. Go find some new friends or whatever. And I know that I'm living what I believe to be a good, fulfilled life. I'm happy. I've got a lot of, grace and blessings in my life. And so I don't need to have you and your negative energy come in here and mandate that I adjust my entire lifestyle to comply with your bizarre political ideologies, right? Or whatever is going on in your demented brain. So back during COVID, made some good peace with that. And then just left it at that. Don't care. Move on. Have a nice life. Says Doan, no matter how you look at politics, and friends too. Friends, lawyers, other lawyers. Rob, you've gone crazy. Bye. Have a nice life. Doan, no matter how you look at politics, it's watching you. The lack of civic concern is the definition of blissful ignorance. Yeah, it's like, okay, you can sit there and have your freedom from being involved in politics, but meanwhile, the politics are wrecking your livelihood, stealing your money, making it impossible for you to go buy a home, taking away your jobs, wrecking the future for your kids, having your country invaded by all these people. Sure, I hope you're enjoying the football game and your Kardashian reality show, but your country is dying around you. So maybe you want to get involved and come join us in this. It's not that bad. We can have a little fun here. We're not going to be, overly toxified or anything like that. Put down the nonsense and come help us save our country. That's all. What's up, Michael LaValle? Michael LaValle, great to have you here, Michael. Thanks for joining up, my man. I appreciate you. Thanks for being a supporter. All right, my friends, what a beautiful stream it has been. Let's see. I think we're live on X, so we got that one working today. And see if we got some comments over there. Rumble friends, I apologize. Yeah, what's up? B Torn is over here. Mini Tika says Rumble's not working. I know. Sorry about that. I don't know why. I connected the tubes. I thought appropriately, just as I've been doing before. Flash River, what's up? What's up, Darby Shaw? Says book deals are money laundering as well. Another good point. Yeah. And Tanya. Great to see you, Tanya. It has been a wild week in politics. And my friends, great to see you over on X. That's our account. If you'd like to follow us, we do post our stuff over there, and we're live over there when it works. So we, though, will leave it there. We're going to head over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. YouTube friends, also stick around because there will be a members after party on YouTube, but you're going to have to go over to the channel homepage, hit the refresh button, and we'll see you back there in just a few short minutes. But my friends, it has been a beautiful stream. Thanks for hanging with us. Thanks for going through the news with us. Thanks for being a part of the efforts here and for the great support. We will pause there for the evening. Before we wrap it up, we want to say thanks to our amazing mods and meme smiths. Donut Mind Me, Carrie B, John helping out. We got K-Bean, Dog Digger, Janek, G-Gum, Neuro D, and Elliot, Docmaster, Just Rhonda, and all of our friends helping out on the show. We're grateful for you. Thanks for helping to make this show what it is. But my friends, that's where we'll leave it on the day. Of course, Membos, stick around. We're going to reboot everything. See you on the after party. And if we don't see you there, well, I hope that we see you tomorrow, because we are coming back here. And in order to do it appropriately, we need to see you right back here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chatting line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers. We won't be denied. Watching the watchers. Eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news, but here we see